Welcome to the seventh and final episode of this Win in the Opening series. We have been looking at things from White's perspective in the French defense, specifically the advanced variation against the French defense for White. And we've seen a lot of different ideas that White has at his disposal and little traps. Definitely, let's say at Grandmaster level, it's very, very rare to find a game where Black falls into any of these things. But at club player level, it really happens all the time. So I think it's really beneficial to be familiar with these ideas. And, even if you don't, let's say, catch your opponent out, then I think that they help you to develop a little bit more of an understanding of typical themes and typical concepts within the opening itself. So, hopefully you're able to get something out of this series, regardless of whether or not you get an easy point the next time that you're facing your friend over the chessboard. So, the last thing that I wanted to look at is it's a line which is not overly popular, but it's definitely not so unusual. French players will typically have to face it. And I'm not necessarily advocating this line. Personally, it's not really my style to, give up one, maybe even 2 pawns in the opening. But if you're tactically minded, I just wanted to show a few examples. If your opponent isn't very well prepared, he can get into a lot of trouble very, very fast in this line indeed. So without further ado, let's actually go and show what I mean. So White plays the move c3, right? So we're basically back to the drawing board. And here Black played knight to c6. White followed with knight f3, bishop to d7, and bishop to d3. C takes d4, c takes d4, and Black has a quick attack on the d4 square. Notice that this time around, it really is threatened because the bishop on d7 is covering this diagonal, meaning that, if White, let's say, plays a silly move like h3, then Black can actually capture here because there is no check in the end like in other lines. So this is a, very much a threat. And so here we have, instead of a silly move like h3, we have this possibility, the move castle. And basically White is saying, yeah, you can grab the pawn, and after the exchange, I don't have any check, I don't have any way of winning back the pawn, but I'm just going to play the knight to c3. And the whole point is I already have this knight out, my bishop is out, my king is safe, my rook is going to come into play very, very soon. And you, on the other hand, your king is on e8. Still, there are pieces here, so you're not going to castle queenside with this open c file. So it's basically a pawn sacrifice in exchange for development and seizing the initiative. And in fact, it's potentially a double pawn sacrifice because Black can grab on e5. After the move knight c3, Black continued with the move rook c8, and now White plays knight to b5. And here I just want to show already Black has some troubles here, because if Black plays a move like queen to b6, then bishop to e3, and the pawn on a7 is falling. You certainly don't want to play a move like bishop c5 because knight d6 check is a nice tactical idea, which at the very least will pick up an exchange. And so Black didn't continue in this fashion. Instead, Black felt no choice but to grab the pawn on e5. Now White is down 2 pawns, but after the move knight takes a7, he hits the rook on c8, and so he's won 1 pawn back. The king is still here. There is a total lack of development, so Black decides bishop to d6, exploiting the fact that White cannot grab the rook because of the mating threat on h2. But the problem with this move is that White now plays the move g3, and not only parries the threat, but after Black now has to move the rook to a different square. In this case, he chose rook a8. Now white has the very strong move bishop to f4 and hitting the queen. The queen has to escape. In fact, actually here, black decided that the position was just too bad, and he resigned. I do think it's a little bit premature to resign here in this position. Black would probably have been best served not taking the pawn on b2, because then you're opening more lines, and really that's going to be, I think, a big problem. But instead playing a move like queen to f6, and after bishop takes d6, playing rook takes a7. And here white can continue with a move like queen to b3. And as we can see, materialist level, white has the bishop pair, is better developed, big control over the dark squares. It's not entirely clear how black is going to finish his development. And he also has to be very careful here. The rook is kind of undefended and a little bit exposed. So the position is, you know, it's really, I think with accurate play, white should be able to win. But, you know, stranger things have happened in chess than white being unable to convert to a position like this. So I do think the resignation was a little bit premature, but I wanted to show the game anyway, because, you know, you sometimes can get a big advantage out of the opening, and it can be something like this rather than, you know, something as clean as winning a piece, right? So let's move on to the next game. So here black played the move bishop to d7, a different order. Again, knight f3, knight to c6, and bishop to d3, h6. Here the black player is actually the higher rated of the two players, just under 2,000 rated player. To be honest with you though, I'm not, I mean, maybe this is theory, I haven't checked, but I would be very surprised, because this kind of weakening move, especially when, you know, you're very far from being castled and you still have some problems to solve, you're also taking away the h6 square from the knight. It just, to me, it just doesn't look like it should be a strong move. Anyway, let's look at how the game unfolded. Castle, c takes d4, c takes d4. Black now plays the move queen to b6, and here white plays knight to c3. He doesn't have to, of course, sacrifice the d4 pawn. There would be ways to defend it. And also there would even be a move like bishop to e3, sacrificing the b2 pawn instead. You know, bishop e3, queen takes b2, knight bd2. And we see this kind of idea, we've seen it before and we see it in other openings, okay? You're going to be able to take the b file, and so white will very often have compensation. But in this case, white decides to play the move knight to c3 instead, and offers the d4 pawn. Black decides to go and grab the pawn, and now white plays the move knight to b5. I think, by the way, that white's play is very good here, because what we have on the board is a very similar position to what we've already seen, kind of the main line of this two-pawn sacrifice line, but with a key difference, which is that black has included the move h7, h6, so he's lagging even more behind in development, and his kingside is that little bit more weak than it otherwise would be. So this is a very good version for white. Queen takes e5, rook e1, hits the queen, and the queen has to step back to b8. It has no other square to go to, because the queen needs to keep on eyeing the c7 square, right? So a move like queen f6 might have been preferred, but in this case that would cost black the rook, right? So because of this, black plays the move queen to b8, but now white, who, you know, has already three pieces working together very well, brings a fourth piece into play, the queen on f3, and this already creates a couple of threats. One of them actually is to grab the pawn on d5 here, so regaining one of the sacrifice pawns, and a pretty important one at that. But he has an even stronger threat, and black, and it is seen after black's next move of a6. White doesn't retreat the knight, but instead chooses to play bishop to f4, hitting the queen, and, well, it's already a hopeless position for black, because if he moves the queen anywhere, well, white is going to be stepping in with the move knight c7 check, and it's not just going to be an exchange, but, you know, the rook is coming in here. You know, for example, knight c7 check, king e7. Now white could even grab this pawn with check. The king has to step back to e8, and now white could go back for more, knight c7 check, king to e7, and here, you know, it it wouldn't surprise me if there's something stronger than knight takes a8, for example. A move like queen takes b7 looks very strong here. Already a move like rook b8, now knight d5 check, and see the bishop coming into play. So yeah, the position is just beyond hopeless. There isn't really too much more to see. I mean, after a move like rook c8, for example, now queen b4 check, the knight on c7 is covering e8, so black can only go to f6, and now we see a move like queen d4 check. Again, black's king has to step back, and bishop d6 is checkmate. So it's really, you know, a crushing attack, and we see the power of this idea of sacrificing 2 pawns, especially if black has been wasting time with, you know, unnecessary moves like h6, like the pawn from h7 to h6. So black after a6, white played bishop f4. Black realized he couldn't move the queen and sort of accepted his fate, took on b5, bishop takes b8, rook takes b8, and here now the move queen takes d5, and yeah, black resigned. The entire position has collapsed, and he's down a queen for only 2 pieces, and, you know, he's even going to lose more material very, very fast indeed. So yeah, we've seen 2 crushing examples of this pawn sacrifice line. Let's look at one more so you guys can all start playing this line, and then when it backfires, you know, leave nasty comments on my channel. So let's go back to the starting position: c5, c3, knight to c6, knight f3, and here in this particular game, a game played between 2200 as white and a 2100 as black. Black played the move queen to b6, bishop to d3, bishop to d7, castle, c takes d4, c takes d4, and black decides to take the free pawn. White plays knight c3. Notice this is a better version of you know, of the last game that we looked at, because black hasn't been you know, spent a tempo with the move h6. So after the move knight c3, black plays bishop to b4. Probably not the best. Now white has this move knight b5. Now if of course if black captures the knight on b5, then after bishop takes b5, the queen on d4 is falling. So he takes on e5, and now white brings his queen into play again. Again, we saw that last time he brought it to f3, but this time g4 is more appealing, because not only are you hitting the potentially weak g7 pawn, but you're also crucially hitting the bishop on b4. So black responds to that and plays the move bishop to a5, but unfortunately for him, after bishop f4, we see the undefended d6 square is gonna basically decide matters. Black could play a move like queen to f6, but this check, certainly picking up this, depriving the king of castling, and also hitting the bishop on a5, it really will almost certainly be too much for black to deal with. So instead of this, after the move bishop f4, black responded with a tactical idea of knight h6. The idea is, if bishop takes e5, well, I will get your queen instead, right? So knight h6, queen g3, and now queen takes b2. Okay, and now white played rook a to b1, and notice this position I think is really nice, because here black actually resigned, and if we look at the material, we see that white has sacrificed 3 pawns. So black is literally 3 pawns up and has a brilliant pawn structure. But what are the problems? Well, all the pawns that black has gained, the d4 pawn, the e5 pawn, and the b2 pawn, they've all been won by the black queen, meaning that the black queen first moved to b6, then it took on d4, then it took on e5, then it took on b2. It's been moving around a lot, and every time that the black queen has been grabbing pawns, white has been bringing pieces out. And so the result is clear. Black's queen is being attacked. Black's king is still in the center. He's not well coordinated. His bishop is here on a5, his knight on h6, and his queen on b2. This is not good coordination. Whereas look at white's position. His bishop is having nice influence over 2 diagonals. this bishop here is influencing this important diagonal, and this other diagonal as well, bishop takes h6, may become a threat in the future. And yeah, with the king here on e8, you have the knight stepping in, the rook crashing down on the b file, and so it's just too much activity, and black doesn't really have anything that he can do. For example, he could capture on a2, but worst comes to worst, white can just play the move rook a1 and pick up the bishop on a5 next move if he wishes, if he doesn't have stronger. But probably here queen takes g7 is even stronger, because you hit both the rook and the knight. So realistically, black would probably play queen to f6, trying to hang on to this pawn on g7. But here, after the move bishop g5, already it's hard to see how black is gonna defend his queen. He doesn't have any squares to go back to here, and white's pieces are all so active and well placed that you see the queen on g3 is covering this square. So basically the queen, all of these squares are being covered, right? The rook covers these two squares. The knight, the well-placed knight on b5 is covering this one and this one. The white queen, again, active white queen on g3 is covering the e5 square as well as supporting the bishop, right? So you see the harmony in white's position. Black could play the move knight f5, similar to the original idea of knight h6. And the point is here that if white captures the queen on f6, well, black will be doing the same to the white queen. Problem with this is that now white has the move bishop takes f5, and after queen takes f5, it seems as though the queen has escaped, but after knight d6 check, the queen gets forked, and so yeah, so white wins a lot of material. In fact, the position is so bad that after king to f8, knight takes f5, e takes f5, white even has the move queen d6 check, which will collect the bishop on d7, because after king e8 there is mate on e7. So yeah, that's it. That's it for not only for this particular episode, which was focusing on the this two pawn sacrificial line. Now, I just want to say one thing. I'm not at a tournament level. I tend to play 1d4, so this is not really a line that I have looked at in quite some time. But I do recall looking at it before and knowing that if black, really knows his stuff, he can get an okay position, right? I remember seeing this from the opening, so I'm not advocating this as some kind of, solution to white's problems when he's facing the French. I mean, the advanced variation is by no means a refutation of the French defense. If it was, well, everybody would play it, right? But I definitely think it's an interesting line, and I think it's got a lot of venom, and I would say it's particularly venomous even at the under 21 or under 2200 level, because it's very sharp, it's very dynamic, and white and black has to know a lot of where the kind of blows might be coming from in a lot of lines, and if he doesn't, he can get in a lot of trouble very, very quick, as we have seen. So but just to go back to the theme of this episode, if you do like the idea, if it's your style to sacrifice a pawn or two in exchange for the initiative and in exchange for development, then by all means go and research this line. Take a look at the pros and cons of it in more detail, and give it a shot in tournament practice if you like the look of it. So yeah, that's it for me. I do hope to be back with another series along similar lines in the future. Certainly not going to be the French advance, but it can be, well, I'm pretty much open to anything. It might be something from black's perspective. It might be a 1d4 opening. It can be anything really, as long as the opening is reasonably popular. So feel free to leave a comment below, or maybe a suggestion as to what the next series you would like me to cover, what opening you would like me to cover in the next series. As I say, it can be white, it can be black. Some of the big names like the Sicilian Najdorf or the Grunfeld, or the Caro-Kann even, let's say. I'm pretty much open to whatever the viewers would like to see. So yeah, until next time, with either until next series or until next video on some other topic, I will see you soon.